Hi everyone, and welcome. We're about to dive into something that, well, powers pretty much everything in our lives. Electricity. Where does it even come from? This whole explainer is brought to you by the fantastic Neelam Talreja, founder of Mindseed Tutorials, right there in Malad, West Mumbai. She's got a real passion for empowering students and accelerating their learning. All right, let's jump right in.
Okay, let's kick things off with a little riddle. What do a huge flash of lightning, the phone in your hand, and that weird little shock you get from a fuzzy carpet all have in common? Any guesses? Yep, you got it. It's electricity. But what is this invisible force, really?
Well, let's find out. Our first stop, the invisible force. We're going to break down what electricity actually is.
You know, it all boils down to these incredibly tiny particles called electrons. So picture this. When these electrons get moving and start jumping from one atom to another, they create a kind of flow, almost like water moving through a pipe. And that flow, that's what we call an electric current. See? Not so complicated when you think about it like that.
So, this river of electrons, it can happen in a couple of ways. First, you've got natural electricity. Think lightning. And get this is a wild fact. A single bolt of lightning is actually hotter than the surface of the sun. Insane, right? Then, on the other hand, you have man-made electricity. That's the stuff we generate ourselves using things like batteries and power plants to run our lives.
Okay, now you've probably heard the terms AC and DC before, but what do they actually mean when it comes to power? Let's break it down.
All right, so direct current, or DC, is super straightforward. Think of it like a one-way street. The electrons flow in just one single direction. That's the kind of juice you get from batteries. Now, alternating current, or AC, that's a whole different ballgame. The electrons are constantly switching directions, flipping back and forth incredibly fast. This is the type of power that comes from the plugs in your wall.
And believe it or not, you use DC power all the time. Those batteries in the TV remote? DC. Your game controller? That's DC too. The solar panels you see on rooftops soaking up the sun? You guessed it, also DC. Even some newer tech, like fuel cells that can power a car or a laptop, they're all creating that same steady one-way current. So if batteries are DC, what about the AC power from our outlets? Where does that come from? Well, its journey is a bit more epic. Let's follow the path of electricity all the way from the power plant right to the plug in your room.
It basically happens in four main stages. Step 1, generation. The electricity is created at a big power plant. Step 2, transmission. That power travels, sometimes for hundreds of miles, through those huge power lines you see everywhere. Step 3, transformation. A transformer steps down the voltage to make it safe for our homes. And finally, Step 4, distribution. A fuse box in your house sends the power exactly where it needs to go, to your lights, your charger, your TV, everything.
But how do they make the electricity at the power plant in the first place? It's actually really cool science. They use some kind of fuel to create a ton of steam. That steam then pushes and spins a giant wheel, called a turbine. That turbine is connected to massive magnets inside coils of copper wire, and as they spin, boom, the electrons start flowing. It's basically using steam and magnets to create energy. Okay, so we've got all this powerful energy flowing around. But how do we manage it? How do we control it safely? This is where we need to talk about electricity's, well, its friends and its enemies.
See, some materials are called conductors, and they basically give electricity a green light to flow right through. Metals like copper are perfect for this, and so is water, which, by the way, is exactly why you have to be so careful with electricity around water. Then you have insulators. These materials do the exact opposite. They block the flow of electricity. Think of plastic, rubber, or glass. They're like a big red stop sign for those moving electrons.
This actually explains a classic riddle. You ever wonder why you see birds sitting on power lines all the time, totally fine, not getting shocked? Well, it's because those big wires are wrapped in an insulator. It's usually a thick rubber or plastic coating that keeps all that powerful electricity safely contained inside the wire. So the birds can just chill out, no problem.
And hey, remember that fuzzy carpet we talked about at the very beginning? That little zap you feel is something called static electricity. What's happening is as you shuffle your feet on the carpet, your body is actually building up extra electrons. Then, the second you touch something metal like a doorknob, zap. All those electrons jump from you to the doorknob in an instant. It's basically your own personal miniature lightning strike.
You know, humans have been curious about electricity for a very long time. It wasn't just discovered yesterday. So let's take a quick trip back in time and look at its shocking history.
Our story really begins way back with the ancient Greeks. They were the first to notice static electricity, just by rubbing pieces of amber. Fast forward a bit, archaeologists have even found what look like ancient batteries at Roman sites. How cool is that? And of course, there's the famous story of Benjamin Franklin. In 1752, he flew a kite during a thunderstorm, a super dangerous experiment, by the way, to prove that lightning and electricity were one and the same. So when you think about it, we've gone from noticing a little spark of static to building a global grid that powers our entire civilization. Isn't it just fascinating how we figured out how to harness this invisible energy? We literally learned how to tame lightning and put it to work for us. Just an absolutely incredible journey.
And that's a wrap on our electric adventure. Thank you so much for watching. For personalized guidance and expert tutoring, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mindseed Tutorials today. Thanks again, and as always, keep asking questions.